Let's talk about genetic engineering. It's one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, complex fields in science. And you just can't learn it from a book. It's all about hands-on practice, which, brings up a really important question.
How do you practice something that intricate? Something where just one tiny mistake could be incredibly costly, or time-consuming, or even dangerous. I mean, what does that practice even look like?
Well, if you look at other fields, we've kind of figured this out. A pilot doesn't just read a book and then hop into a 747, right? They spend hundreds of hours in a flight simulator. A lawyer doesn't just study cases, they argue them in mock trials.
These are safe spaces to learn, to fail, and to really master your craft. So that leaves a big question hanging in the air. What is the flight simulator for a geneticist?
And that question, it takes us right to the first major hurdle. We'll call it the real-world lab challenge. It's all about trying to bridge that huge gap between what you read in a book and what you actually do in a lab.
And this slide just lays out the problem perfectly. On one side, you've got textbook theory, these abstract ideas, super complex pathways that are almost impossible to actually visualize in your head. Then, on the other side, you have the hard reality of a lab. We're talking high costs, real safety risks, and a lot of the time, you only get one shot to get an experiment right. For a student, that is a massive, massive disconnect.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what on earth is the solution? Well, it turns out it's creating a whole new kind of lab, a digital space that's built from the ground up for pure discovery.
And here it is, the Genetic Engineering Virtual Lab. It's basically an interactive simulation that acts like a real lab. And the key here is that it lets students run through all these complicated experiments online in an environment that's completely safe and totally risk-free.
And the benefits? They are huge. First off, you get safe experimentation, zero biological hazards, no breaking expensive equipment. The simulations are also incredibly realistic, so they mirror what you'd actually be doing in a lab, finally bridging that gap we talked about. And for me, this is the most important part. Unlimited repetition. You can try a technique 20, 30, 100 times until you nail it, all without wasting a single real-world resource.
So what this all really boils down to is a complete shift in how we learn. These virtual labs take those abstract ideas from the textbook and turn them into real, meaningful, hands-on experiences. You're not just reading anymore, you're actually doing.
Okay, so that all sounds pretty great in theory, but what does it actually look like in practice? Let's dive in and go inside one of these digital experiments for a step-by-step walkthrough. So we're going to look at a classic, super important procedure, DNA fingerprinting, using a technique called gel electrophoresis. You've probably seen this used in all those crime shows, right? Well, now we get to do it ourselves.
And here's the workflow. First, you virtually prepare your agarose gel. Then, using a digital micropipette, you load your DNA samples into the gel, which, trust me, is a skill that takes practice. Next, you run the electrophoresis, which uses an electric current to separate the DNA. After that, you pop it under a virtual UV light to see the DNA bands. And finally, you get to play detective and interpret the results to solve a case. It's the whole scientific process, start to finish.
But, this is way bigger than just one cool experiment. This kind of technology really points to the future of the science class itself and how we weave tech into education. And this isn't some far-off idea either. It's happening right now. Universities are already using these virtual labs in their classes. It helps students get comfortable with the procedures and really understand the theory before they ever step foot in a physical lab. It's like the perfect warm-up for the main event.
Okay, but what about real-world safety? Does this make students less careful? It's a really important question, and the answer is no. As PraxiLabs, one of the companies that makes these tools, explains, it doesn't get rid of the need for biosafety knowledge. Instead, it gives you a safe, virtual space to train for and understand those very protocols. So it's not a replacement for knowledge. It's a tool to build it.
And this all brings us to one last really exciting thought. When we can make the training for science's most complicated skills totally safe and accessible for everyone, we're empowering a whole new generation of innovators. So the question we're left with is this: what new frontiers can our scientists explore when their training ground has absolutely no limits?